It's okay.
Yeah. All right, ready?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Jason.
And this is going to be our week 1 discussion of Project Hail Mary by Andy. Is it Weir or Weir? And we'll be talking about chapters 1 through 10.
Keep going.
Close your eyes.
It
Don't
does
let
bother
us
me.
make you sick.
Okay.
We're trying to
It's a little better.
make it a little more even. So, if this is your first time joining us, welcome to the book club. Please participate in the comment section or the chat if you're live. If you're catching us on the replay, please participate in the comment section below the video because we love to see what your thoughts are about the books that we're reading. We love it. And we're also on Good Reads, which I'll get updated today because it's not up to date currently for this current book. And we're on YouTube Music as a podcast.
We everywhere. We still don't have an Instagram. I'll get there eventually.
We're everywhere YouTube-y related.
Yeah.
So, Peggy says this book is awesome so far. And I have to say before we get started, there are so many things that Raylan Grace, is that his name? Rylan Grace. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a dude, I'm totally seeing Peggy in so much of this. Just the way that he figures things out and the way that he processes through things. Peggy, did you write this book? I feel like it's you.
Yeah.
He's so, I guess we're just diving right in. The narrator, the guy.
Yeah.
Rylan Grace.
Yeah.
So connectable to, relatable. He's so relatable.
Yeah.
Got the words.
Well, what's funny to me, I see some of you in him, I think, because he's a teacher and you were a teacher. And just sort of like the way he tries to make things fun for the kids and how he... like he's doing all this cool science stuff, but he still feels this like, but I have to get back to my kids, right? Like, what about their education? Even though like it doesn't matter because everyone will be dead soon or whatever. You know? I feel like that would be you.
Yeah, someone else picks it up where you left off. But I do love that aspect of his character. He loves his kids so much, and even when he was trying to figure out, like, wait, I love kids. Like, wait,
yeah, what does that mean?
He's like, no, I'm a teacher. It's okay. You know, he's so amazed at the things that they come up with, and he's entertained by them, and he loves teaching them things, and it's such a fun experience to, you know, have. It's a lot of fun, and there are so many teachers who are like that, and that's the kind of teachers that you want for your kids. Yeah. I love that. About 2 years into me teaching English, I realized I should have been a science teacher with a book club. That, you know, I should have taught science. It just would have been way more fun.
Can we like back up for a second?
Absolutely.
If you are not listening to the Audible audiobook, you are really missing out.
It is a treat.
It like the guy who narrates it deserves an award. It's amazing. I have this book in print. I haven't started it in print. And normally I read everything. I very rarely listen to audiobooks unless I'm late and I have to catch up before the show. And it is so good. And it's almost like the old school like radio broadcast.
Yes.
Like it is
a
whole production. It is fantastic.
Especially
it does the voice for the spider thing.
What is even that in the book? Does it just say
idea.
like weird harmonic noise?
I have no idea.
But the moment I heard that, I was like, whoa!
Yeah, it was really good. I thought that was cool.
It's so good. It's so good. We have, just sidebar to you, we have like new options over here on the side of the screen.
Yeah, I see that. I don't. It looks like we can mute it and change the
We're
color
going to have
palette.
to do like a test live later and push all these buttons and see what's going on. Yeah, okay, so it's musical notes in,
cool.
in the book. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
If ever you're going to splurge and buy yourself one audiobook, this is the one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone said, Peggy said asking himself if he was religious because he doesn't curse.
Yeah.
So much inquiry. Yes.
Yeah. Amnesia is so weird, right? Like just like what an absolutely bizarre thing. I think everybody by now knows that I feel some level of claustrophobia. Always, right? not really always, but like I like my space and I like to know I have options. And I don't. I don't. I've been up around boats my entire life. I don't mind boats. The idea of being on the ocean kind of freaks me out. Cruise ships are okay because I can generally not see the water. But like if I was out on like a boat, like a pirate ship in the ocean, I think I'd lose my mind. Space is worse, right? Like space in a spaceship, knowing that there's nothing for millions of miles, is terrifying. And but what's worse than that is being trapped inside yourself. And we've talked about this a little bit before with some of the other books that we've read. But I think that hey, baby, I think that amnesia is almost one of those things, right? Like
Yeah.
you there's a sense of being trapped, and I don't know who I am. So
Yeah.
oh,
Very much so. Okay, so when we first started this book, his process of, okay, I can do 2 plus 2 is 4, and but what's my name, and then where am I, and what's all the stuff around me. It immediately reminded me of a speech from Ayn Rand, and it's her speech to the graduating class of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. It was in 1974.
okay.
And it's called Philosophy Who Needs It. And she talks about hello, Atlas. She talks about how we have these essential philosophical questions that we really do need. It's the importance of like why we study philosophy. But she gives this example of an astronaut who ends up stranded on a planet, and the first 3 questions that that astronaut asks are, where am I? How can I discover it? And what should I do? And we saw that process with Ryland Grace, except he was forced to have to answer the question, who am I, first, so that he could discover. But that was his goal, was where am I? What can I discover here? And what should I do?
Yeah.
Like, why am I here? And so I thought that that was very interesting. I almost feel like it was so closely aligned. I feel like Andy Weir might have kind of used this speech as a shooting off point, launching point for the novel.
Yeah.
It was just so close.
Yeah. You know, I think I was thinking about this a lot, like how lucky they were that he's the guy who made it, because, and I'm sure astronauts are all smart, but what I'm enjoying most about this book, I think, is kind of just watching his scientific process, right? He comes up with a hypothesis, he tests his hypothesis, and this is why I think that I'm gonna say like liberal arts education, right? Like a wide. This is why like a wide education I think is important. I am not a scientist. I'm in a science adjacent social science field, right?
Right.
And but having an understanding of the scientific method and some basic stuff helps you to test these ideas and then get to conclusions. He does this with himself and figuring out like where he is and what's going on. But then like he also has some specific knowledge that like no amount of science education is going to help me with. Like if I had pulled all those balls on strings out of bigger balls, I would have been like, I don't know what to do with this, right? And he was able to be like, this is oxygen or whatever, right? I cannot do that because I don't have like the specific training for it or whatever. But it's interesting to see him use like the baseline stuff here, as well as the specific stuff, and it kind of makes me think like if maybe we should be training all of our astronauts all the time in case they run into something.
Right.
Because this is a really fantastic method of communication that this spider thing has come up with, right? It's not even, you often think about things being math related or whatever, and they do some math communication once they pull out the clock. And I want to talk about that soon. But just using basic images. Look, this is me, this is you, right? It goes here, right? Or and all that I think is really brilliant. And we could do something like that now. I think if this book had been written 10 years ago, we'd be like, well, how would we even do that? And obviously the aliens have superior technology if they can do that, but we could with like 3D printing. We could just here you
Right.
go. I think it's very neat.
Jason cannot be part of Trust's crew.
Yeah, I can't. I can't.
No. So the alien speaking in the musical notes immediately reminded me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a movie that I loved as a child. Loved that movie.
We've been talking a little bit about having like doing a movie a month or something, and Nicole has never seen Contact.
I know, and I really want to. I
You've
really
read
want to
it?
read it. No,
Oh,
I
okay.
really want to read it
Okay,
too.
I've never read
I'm
it.
obsessed with Carl Sagan, by the way.
Okay.
And so the fact that I haven't read it or watched it is
Yeah,
just bizarre.
but maybe eventually we tack that onto our reading list and then do it as our movie as
Fun.
well. That might
I've
be
read,
fun.
so much about it,
Yeah.
and like I don't know. I've read other stuff that Carl Sagan's written, but the framework in which Shelby and Peggy teach is very inquiry based. How do we figure stuff out? What's important? That is, I think, just the most beneficial style of teaching. That's the whole point of education,
Yeah.
is not teaching facts. It's how do we think and how do we problem solve and how do we get ourselves out of any situation or make the best out of any situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the whole purpose of it.
So Shelby's gone ahead and mentioned the base six thing, and I think that's interesting because I agree. Base six is not something that would come naturally to us, and I think it's a strange option. But whenever we show him the clock, our clocks are in base 60. And we've probably talked about this at least once on the show, but I think base 60 is really interesting. Like
I think it's stupid.
I kind of get
don't
nerded
it.
out about base 60 because it's incredibly divisible, right? Like it's way more divisible than base 10, right? Like you can get more I can't remember the word now, but like more like prime numbers and things, and you can do a lot more. But they think that the reason that we designed base 60 is not for that reason necessarily, but because people originally counted by knuckles and not by fingers, and we have 12 knuckles, not counting your thumb. And so it's really base 12, multiplied by 5. And then you get to this degree. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Not counting your thumb. And you use your thumb to count, like going down the knuckles. Yeah. So, yeah.
It took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to be able to read a clock.
But you can get bigger numbers this way. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the clock thing is really interesting. And our protagonist points out, like, you can learn so much by basically, like, you've learned how they think about time. You've learned some of their numbers, right? You've learned their base system. It's a very smart way of going about it, I think.
Oh, interesting. Peggy used to teach base 2, 5, and 8 in Nigeria. It's helpful for the why of borrowing and subtraction. Cool.
And I've heard that
Jeez, what's on that cup?
probably ignores. What are we talking about?
I don't know. I saw a comment that said something about cheese and what's on our cup.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard that in some languages it's easier to think about numbers, and that's kind of interesting too. Like numbers can be done any number of ways, and why should we do it in English? Is the Chinese method better?
Choose joy, not cheese joy. Thanks, Shelby. But yeah, well, so okay, and I don't know a lot about it, but I did read one time that Chinese math is so much more efficient because, like, the names of the numbers indicate the addition of them or the combinations of them, and so there's a step already taken care of for you.
Yeah.
So it's just much more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So, what are my other notes? Oh, some funny things that stuck out. Happy Russian noises or whatever.
Oh yeah. whenever the I think it's while he's on the aircraft carrier and he provides them with the astrophage for the first time and they make happy Russian noises. I don't know what noise that is, but I love that description. It was really good.
He's just a very funny
Yeah.
narrator.
Yeah.
He's so wholesome too.
Yeah. This is another book. We had most of you probably don't know this because y'all probably don't go back and read all of our comments on our videos, but we do. And we had a Chinese viewer come by recently and talk about the Three Body Show and talk about how they were concerned that the Chinese were going to be portrayed in a bad way. And, I don't, even though there are historical elements in the book that are obviously negative, I think that generally in that book, as well as in this book, the sense of we all come together to solve this collective problem, I think is the thing that stands out most to me. And it's so unfortunate and that we have to have this enemy or we have to face this existential threat to like be able to do that. But the Russians using a Chinese aircraft carrier to host a American head, of scientific research or whatever, and it's really collaborative, and I think that that's something that really stands out to me.
And that is such a huge point, or a huge thing with our space programs is, I mean, we see it worded like in the media so much, like, oh, the Americans stepped foot on the moon and, this and that and this and that. But really, our best scientific research and our best contributions are like the International Space Station. It's all of us coming together, all of our resources to learn the science.
Yeah.
For sure. Ah. We have such a fun, eclectic bunch, knowing different languages.
Yeah.
Josh says the parts on Earth did remind me of the wall facer and the staircase project. Yeah.
There's definitely something about the aircraft carrier that brings back the in the show is called Judgment Day. I can't remember if it's called that in the book, right? But this idea of like this boat outpost of alien contact or whatever. Yeah, I agree. And the whole concept of like we're not going to let you get run over by a car, right? Like there's literally a comment in there that says like you are our best scientist. We're not going to let you leave here and just randomly get hit by a car, which is what happens for Luoji. So,
yeah.
yeah.
How funny.
Yeah.
How funny. I loved his whole scientific process of learning about the astrophage, how they reproduce, and when he thought he lost one, and I don't know, he killed one of them. I am concerned about how quickly he jumps to they can reproduce. Well, that means that we can poke them and test them and do whatever we want because we have an infinite supply of them.
Yeah.
And even though we're considering it like algae, there has to be some part of your mind that's very careful about how much are you exploiting this. It's a life form.
Yeah, what happens when the aliens figure out how we reproduce, so they do it to us?
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
And sorry,
okay.
Peggy says she loves how he named him. I died. He called him Larry, Moe, and Curly. And then when that fourth one popped up, he called him Shemp. Because that's like the stooge that just like randomly came on, and everyone's like, "Who's Shemp?" He was like Moe's cousin or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the names of the Beatles too.
Yeah. I don't think he was kind of ostracized from the scientific community for
his paper.
Yeah, and thinking that like water is not necessary for life. That all seems like a bit weird to me because that seems obvious that like this could possibly happen. The idea that you are just the scientist and you say no, that could not happen at all is bizarre. If you were like, we have no evidence for it, I'm on board. Cool, but we have no evidence for life anywhere else.
Cannot.
Anyway. Yeah,
it's very unscientific.
Yes, and then we find this and it has water, so therefore it proves that life must have water. That is quite the leap. But
right.
and he hasn't mentioned it yet, but now that we know that the atmosphere has ammonia in it, it is highly likely that this spider thing is not water-based. And he hasn't I don't think they've explicitly said that yet, but I think we have found the thing, And I'm kind of fascinated by the idea of like silicate life and things that are things that would be totally different from the way that we operate. I think those are cool.
Yeah, I did not expect for us to see whole sentient life forms in this novel. I didn't know what this book was about.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect that. I definitely didn't expect to see them as spiders.
Yeah. Yeah. So the alien situation here reminds me of two different works. Work number one, Spaceman, which features Adam Sandler and is on Netflix right now and is okay. Has a man who goes into space alone to go into and to collect samples of a mysterious cloud that has appeared in the solar system, and he runs into a spider alien. It is almost exactly this, but not as good. So heads up, If you want to watch it, it's interesting. It's the kind of movie that I would like, but it was weird. The second thing that this reminds me of is actually the Astrophage. The Astrophage reminds me of the sequel to Ender's Game, which I don't think you've ever read.
I have not.
It's called Speaker for the Dead. And in that book, Ender lives on a planet that has a complicated relationship with this sort of like microscopic organism called the Descolata. And this kind of reminds me of that. So shout out to Ender's Game series over there.
Yeah. And like Peggy, I was catching huge Children of Time vibes.
With the spiders? Yeah.
Yeah. I miss them. I was really connected to the spider.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The like this book just taps into my inner geek, my inner like space nerd.
Yeah.
It's all so good. And like I don't even know if it's accurate.
Yeah.
As I'm reading it though, I'm like, yup, this checks out. This makes sense. Like
So-
the way that he words everything and explains everything connects in my brain. I hope it's true and real,
Yeah.
you know, because I'd hate for Neil deGrasse Tyson to come up and be like, here's 30 things that's wrong with this book. But it's so good.
I also don't know, and this is hearsay, but I was told yesterday, and have done no homework whatsoever, that the author of this book was contacted by NASA to see like who he had been talking to because they would like to talk to that person, and he was like, I just Wikipedia'd and did my own research. That's what I was told yesterday.
But that his calculations were so precise, and so well explained and detailed that surely he had some help making sure that it all checked out. But I mean, it's brilliant. I also wonder. I wonder if he made this narrator so wholesome and not profanity based because of The Martian. I feel like the book The Martian had a lot of cussing and stuff in it, and I feel like there was a little bit of commentary about that.
So I watched The Martian, but I didn't read it, and it has a very similar vibe to it, right? Where like he is solving problems and using the scientific method to try to survive. And,
I also only watched The Martian and did not read it. It was part of our like school-wide summer reading one year.
Yeah.
But you were allowed to watch a movie and not read the book if you wanted. So I chose to watch the movie. ChatGPT. Because good research skills can't possibly exist. You gotta watch out though, because it daydreams and it'll just throw weird stuff in there that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I've been playing. I might have said this already. One cool thing about this episode today is that the thumbnail we're using is our first ever thumbnail that I have made using AI. And I've made a lot of pictures using AI. I'm kind of interested in that. But I think all of our thumbnails from now on are going to be AI generated. And I've been playing around with that. But I've also made some videos with AI. And one time I just gave it a very generic thing and I said, like, give me the best books from 2023 because I was going to, like, make a video about it. I was just going to, like, post it and see what happened. And all the books they gave me 3 books. They sounded so cool. None of them are real. It just made up books.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Josh was scared there were actual beetles on board for some strange reason. Beetles or beetles? Like Beatles with E's or Beatles with a beat? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in the very beginning of the book, he gives a thank you to John, George, Paul, and Ringo.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to suggest another movie if you just have time. There are not a lot of elements of this, but when he wakes up and finds that his crew is all dead, it reminds me of my favorite space horror movie, which is Pandorum. And Pandorum is just about a guy who wakes up on a ship and he's not really sure how he got there and what's going on, and his crew is dead and there's something in there with him. And it's a good time. So I definitely recommend that if you like sort of like a horror movie.
One part of the book that I really liked was when he was trying to prepare himself for 0G. Mm-hmm. That was the right part. And so he knew what was going to happen. He understood the science of what was happening. And when it happened, he just absolutely had a panic attack. Yeah. And he's just like, our brains are just...
Sure.
To 2 ends. Our brains are just not well adapted for quick change, but then also they are. All of a sudden, we can just exist in chaos or something
Yeah.
totally different, and it be normal.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool to see his progression of how he's handling all these weird new things going
Yeah.
on in his life. Very adaptable,
Yeah.
these humans.
Well, yeah, I mean, and at some point, I think he says like, it's amazing the machinery that is made and how efficient it is. Talking about us. But one thing that's interesting to me is, you're right. Like he refers to it as our lizard brain. Like our lizard brains are not built to be in
Be in
zero
zero
G
G,
and to
so-
like to even like begin to comprehend this
So
thing.
we're gonna
not,
throw up.
Yeah, well, and like we're not even really built to like think about like the space between atoms and like things that are on that level, and that is a struggle for us. But on the flip side, we look at these astrophage and we say that they're not intelligent, despite the fact in this book, despite the fact that we are obviously built to see intelligence in everything. We see intelligence in the weather. We see intelligence in like rock formations. We are oversensitive
Yes.
to ascribing intelligence, but for whatever reason, we look at astrophage and we're like, not you.
But I mean, but even he does, he anthropomorphizes it.
That is true.
He gives them names,
Yeah.
and he names Rocky, and he names
Yeah.
everything. I mean, he does assign
Yeah.
a
You're
bit
right.
of humanity
Yeah.
to everything he does, even though he also looks at it at the same time and thinks, oh, I can kill it, and I can reproduce it,
Right.
and I can test
Well,
it.
and I guess the
can...
other scientists I'm referring to, right? Like they just don't believe it's intelligent, and I just think that's interesting because we just see intelligence everywhere.
Shelby says floating in space has always seemed really cool. Yeah. I would love to be able to go into orbit. That'd be so neat.
If I went with you and my dog, maybe.
Put a little helmet on Atlas. That'd be so cool. There's an OK Go music video where they're on that jet that can do zero Gs for a few seconds at a time or whatever. And so, they have it all planned out and they have all the things that they want to do. And it's so cool to see. So they're in the jet, right? And they've got like little foot bars where they can hold themselves down if they need to. And so when it's in zero G, they get up and they do all this weird stuff, and then they have to hurry up and get back to their seat before it goes back to like slamming them back down with gravity. It's a lot of fun. I can't remember vomit comment. I can't remember which song it is, but it's totally worth looking up, especially if you can get like a director's cut where they're talking about how it felt and what all they were trying to do.
Yeah. So
cool. Half their takes were ruined because of like paint in zero G getting on the lens and stuff. I mean, it's really cool. How fun though.
While we're like semi off topic, like we're not really off topic, right? We're like topic adjacent to the book.
I didn't take it as judgment.
Okay, cool. Several of y'all might have noticed that we were not filming from our normal location last week.
Oh yeah.
And it's because we went to see the full eclipse, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
I cried.
It was insane. And so, anyway, but it's sun related and space related, so therefore I can talk about it.
Overwhelmed. Did not realize what I would have missed.
Yeah.
I did not realize how intense. Oh, and then also there was a part in the book where he said, just at our sun's like 98% capacity, we couldn't survive like that. That's insane because you couldn't even tell at 98% of full sun.
Yeah.
That it wasn't full sun.
It was really interesting to be able to see. I mean, even when there was only a sliver of the sun left, it was almost fully daylight. We have a time lapse video that we took, and we'll have to post it for you guys to check it out.
Yeah,
but
I was asking,
how
or I was
crazy.
thinking we could get permission from the folks who were in it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to tell who's in the video, but yeah, it's a really cool time lapse, and you see how dark it gets at totality.
But even at 98%
it was still
visible,
daylight.
It was like it's weird to think about that. And somewhere I had seen a sign or a post or something that talked about like how much less photosynthesis plants would be doing because of the totality and everything. And I mean, it's kind of like oxygen. If you're a smoker and you get, let's say you do one cigarette a day or whatever, especially as like a child, it's, you may think that's not that big a deal, but it's like that much oxygen that you're not getting. And if you stack it up every day, it really adds on to the effects. And so if you're missing 2% of sunlight every day, that's a lot.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Yeah, this ET relationship that's developing makes Shelby a little wary of Dr. Grace figures. how to get back and bring Rocky.
Yeah. I have a feeling, and I have no evidence for this whatsoever, but I think he's going to figure out this astrophage thing, blast off his beetles, and then maybe he just goes to like live with Rocky, or maybe they die together or something. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going because I really have read no synopsis of the book, so I don't even know.
Yeah, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
But he's fully prepared
Hmm.
to die out there
Yeah, I
because he
don't
thinks
think he's
that's his
really.
only
Yeah,
option.
I don't think he's really like grappled with it yet, because like talk about claustrophobia,
Right.
right?
He just says the words.
Yeah, there's like a claustrophobia of time.
He's acknowledged.
Yeah, but he keeps himself so busy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing things that excite him. I mean, he hadn't even slept for 2 days by the end of this thing, right? And so, at some point, I think it's really going to start hitting him.
Yeah. Towelite.
Towelite, yeah, that was cool.
I mean, this is just such a well-rounded novel.
Yeah,
It is a science geeky novel. It is explained in a way that's so accessible and so entertaining for anybody. It's just really so good.
yeah,
So good. I'm so glad we picked this. There's no re-entry section of the spaceship that Dr. Grace is on, so how would he re-enter the atmosphere?
yeah. I mean, like maybe what you do is you pass by Earth and get somebody to come up and grab you or something. You know, like maybe you don't re-enter the
Right,
atmosphere.
well, because they built this thing in space.
Yeah,
Because it's huge.
we got some options. I don't know. Yeah, I have no predictions whatsoever.
Maybe he could catch a ride on a beetle.
Yeah. What if we go through all of this and he doesn't find a solution?
Right.
You know, like what if he doesn't?
And that's
And that's that.
that's a possibility.
Yeah. You know, what if something has already happened to Earth? He keeps talking about how he's been asleep for, I don't remember. What's the real
3
amount of time?
years, maybe?
But I think that's to
Well,
him.
that's right. He
So-
says he has no idea how much
Yeah.
time that would have been on Earth.
I think that there's a real possibility that we discover that. So number one, I'm not convinced that this is Tau. Right? Like that's what the ship was made to do. That's where he was supposed to go. What if it's not? Like what if it's not for some reason? And number two, what if a significant amount of time has passed more than what he thinks for some unknown reason? You know, what if 1,000 years has passed? Everybody on Earth is dead.
It could be like a death send issue where like you got caught in orbit
Yeah.
and so much time went by and
Yeah. I mean, what if this thing that he's meeting is a future generation of human
Yeah.
in some way, some future evolution, because it's been millions of years, and I don't know, you know, I don't know.
yeah. The counter had 4 digits for days. It could be 27 years.
Yeah.
Unless it like went over and just started like old odometers that would just start back over at 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this brings up a question too, you know, like once we have people who live in space, especially far out, you know, at some point they become something different.
Sure.
They are no longer
Yeah.
earthlings quite so as we know,
Right.
you know.
Well, as long as there is no interbreeding between the two populations for a significant amount of time, for there to be no viable offspring. Yeah.
And you know, the fact that if you're doing space travel, you can get caught in a weird time relativity situation that it would be weird if you came back.
Yeah.
You know, the place that you left is not the place that remains now.
Yeah.
And there's not much life for you there because everything's moved on and it's a whole different world and you'd have to learn all these new different things.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question of like when we send people out into space for big things like this, should there be any expectation of returning, you know? And I don't know. It's an interesting issue. And Shishin Liu went into good detail about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so Josh is saying, what if they blew up Venus? That's a cool idea, right? Like,
Oh,
like,
no.
well, just you know, if the astrophage is traveling between Earth, I mean, between the sun and Venus, what if you just blow up Venus? You can't blow up the sun; that's not an option. But what if you nuked Venus, that would be an interesting solution that honestly probably wouldn't cost the solar system all that much.
I mean, it would change some gravity stuff.
Maybe, yeah, probably,
I mean, it's got moons and it's got.
yeah. But it might be less than losing the sun. You know,
I don't know.
it's an option. It's definitely an option I hadn't considered.
We need to send an email to Neil deGrasse Tyson and be like, okay,
What happens if we
what are
blow
the
up?
implications if we blow up Venus?
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
I think it could have some like significant issues. First of all, you have all this space debris now, right? We have way more junk floating around than what we had before
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
with velocity.
Yeah, I mean, like you could run, you'd have to think about like when to blow it up because I don't know anything about Venus. I just don't. But if it had like a moon, and let's say we blow up the Venus and the moon goes slinging out into space because it has lost like that gravity well. What if it comes like right at us or something? I don't know. But yeah, that would be destroy the food source, right? Essentially is what it is, and that is a common tactic for fighting against a population of beings of any kind
Yeah.
that you do not want.
Oh my goodness. Such snuggles. We saw that in Childhood's End. He showed it for the finale.
Yeah,
I don't remember much about that book. Unfortunately. Except I do think about it every time I hear David Bowie's Starman.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So far, I don't have any good guesses. I just want to just keep exploring, with Rocky and Grace
Yeah.
and see what happens. But this is definitely not a book that I'm going to be like waiting till the end of this week to finish. I'm going to start right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also picture our narrator as Tom Hanks. Like, Tom
Okay.
Hanks is Ryland Grace for me.
Okay.
And it has to be from, like, Castaway. Like, hearing him kind of talk through everything on his own and all
Yeah.
that. And there's just something about the style of the narration that is Tom Hanks-esque.
Yeah. I just going back to the narration, even if I was reading it, I love it's not uncommon to see a book that is, the thought, like flow of consciousness. Yeah. But this book is probably the closest to like an actual flow that I've ever read. It's really interesting.
Even weird little interruptions and...
Yeah. Like I think it was when he discovered that there was the beetles on the ship, right? So he's like, I'm looking at the control panel and there's 4 beetles, and then over here, wait, what? Right? Like, and we
Yeah.
think like this. you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels so natural, and I'm telling you, like, I was running one morning, and that run went by so fast because I was listening to this book, and I was almost like, can I just keep running a little bit longer as I keep listening? Whoever wants to run a little longer.
Nobody.
I was working on a whole flower bed while I was listening to the book, and when the book was over, I was like, guess I'm done working. I'm ready to go inside now.
I've had several people tell me who are reading this with us that they are not stopping to wait for us. They're gonna keep going, and that's fine.
I had to be very careful
Me too.
to not go too far.
Yeah.
I did not notice when they announced new chapter numbers. Like, I had to keep checking. I was like, oh my gosh, I've overread.
Yeah.
Because there's just no... it's just very hard to stop.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. You got anything else?
I don't know. I think we've talked about most of the things that I want to talk about. Does anyone else have anything else?
Yeah. Atlas, you got anything else, baby? No.
So this week we are reading 11 through 20.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I guess we get to it.
And next week we announce our next book.
Oh, do you know already?
I think I do.
Oh.
I think I do. Yeah, I have not shared. Who does the important government lady work for?
Like the UN or something. She's talking about Strat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Strat's bat?
Yeah. You know, so you know what's really interesting? That's funny. But one thing that I see constantly in science fiction is innovation pushed by dictatorship, right? And obviously Strat is not like a true dictator, but she has all this power and can just like make things happen. She can basically kidnap you, do whatever she wants. We see a similar sort of thing in Three Body, obviously, with the wall facers. And I have long kind of had this idea that even though I am very much in favor of everyone having a say, it is a inefficient way to become a spacefaring species, and it's a very inefficient way to tackle a crisis. You know, and it kind of reminds me of like the Roman Republic. They had dictators as a position that they would basically put into power to deal
To
with a
solve a
specific
problem.
crisis. Yeah,
Yep.
and then they were supposed to move on.
That's what Caesar was supposed to be.
Yep.
Oh, big stretch.
But anyway, but I think that's kind of interesting that in most science fiction, we have no faith whatsoever in democracy to solve these problems, and I'm not convinced that that's like an inappropriate point of view.
Yeah. Even Machiavelli
things
says that the people will choose a dictator over chaos.
Yeah.
And in a situation like this, it can easily fall into chaos. We just need someone who will make decisions, and that's what we just have to do to solve the problem.
Yeah, and then eventually you just have to overthrow that dictator. Should
Should they not step down?
Yeah, should they not step down, and should the crisis be solved? Yeah.
Adults form committees and talk and talk. She makes decisions. She does things. No talk.
Yeah.
Just do it. Done.
And
Yeah.
I respect that.
I'm a committee person.
Nicole is a committee person. I'm a dictator. It's kind of the way I operate.
Yeah. Yep. No, I like to talk things out and pros and cons and make sure we're all okay with the final decision. And this could be more efficient, but this could be more fun. That's a real pain.
It's not a pain.
You say hello. Say, I'm reading this book too. It's so good. She's so sleepy.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good observation, right? About Strat specifically and sort of the way that we tackle these huge problems. I mean, like literally bigger than the planet, bigger than humanity,
Yeah.
you know, or as big as us. You know, how do you do that? Yeah. I'm interested in finding out more about the past. You know, not just about what's going on with the Rocky, but I want to know more about the story. You know, how is Grace going to be selected? You know, like I think Strat already at this point knows that he has the right DNA. You know, for the coma.
Yeah. How did they
And
know?
and like at some point she's gonna have to be like, I've known forever, right? So,
Or like they stole a McDonald's cup out of his lab or something.
Yeah.
You know, tested him. Yeah, that's good.
quite good.
All right. Well, let's get back to it. Waste no time. Start reading.
Thank you everybody for being here. We greatly appreciate it. We're glad everybody's having so much fun. And we will see you all next week for chapters 11 through 20.
Happy reading.
See you then. Keep waiting.